Welcome back to another video on Gearsaw Studios, and today I'm going to be showing you how to build yourself this cute little Tudor house. Been experimenting with a little bit of a new building style, and I think it really paid off. Perfectly livable, even comes with things like a horse, some crops, and just about everything you'd ever need for normal survival mode gameplay. So without further ado, let's investigate how we'd go about building this. Starting off, we just need a nice flat area. As you can see, 1.21.5, nice flat area on a mountainside, which means this will be a pretty nice view. Of course, if there's wildflowers, maybe remove a few of them so that way you can start building. And now, let's just place down some oak logs. Very simple stuff. Of course, very easy to get lots of oak logs if you just plant them in mass. Of course, keep flowers nearby so that way you get bees. And then, we want to make sure that they're an odd number of blocks away. Something like this. And then we go in a few blocks. This one, because it's not a doorway, I think we can just leave as 4. And then we make it a few blocks tall. Eventually, we'll connect them up and make some parts have a second floor. There will be no balconies though, that's for certain. Build a few of these around, making sure that the outer walls, like these ones, assuming we're doing an L shape, and not this one, are odd numbered. Of course, technically, you could make all of them odd numbers. Now, we have a few oak logs here. You can see 4 blocks tall for each layer, which keeps it nice and roomy. And then what we can do is, I'm learning some new building tricks. We can add these onto the end. Later on, we'll decorate with some spruce because that matches oak logs. And now, what we want to do is fill in the second floor with white concrete for our walls. And this is a pretty simple idea, because of course Tudor houses, pictured here, are, well, darker on the bottom and lighter on the top. Let's carry this out for the rest of the build. Then for our entrance, let's get ready to do a little porch like this. Make a simple deck out of oak planks. Now we have a very simplistic house. No details on it, just a brick and white concrete house. It's kind of boring, let's be honest. But before we actually do anything there, let's add a little bit of flooring on the inside. And of course, we don't need to get anything too complicated in here. Let's just try something like stone as a base. So here we have typical stone. Oh, first time I've used it in this testing world. And now what we want to do is decorate it a little. Let's use andesite and its polished variant. And maybe, if need be, let's just type in polished. We could potentially try some tough as well, but that might be a little bit too dark. So let's sprinkle them in like this. Don't think too much about the placement of the polished andesite. Just make sure that they're generally not touching. And then make blobs of andesite. Don't just randomly place stuff or use a world edit command for this. It's called block vomit. You don't want block vomit. You want it to look like that there's actual purpose behind these blocks, rather than I used a noise function. Things like that. We could also smooth out the walls like this, but I recommend let's save that for later. Just add in your polished andesite, and for our front door, we can do any door. I'm going to stick with spruce for this, because oak doors admittedly are kind of hard to use, versus the much more, well, picturesque spruce door. Now, you can see right here, I have the flooring done, and I made a little cutout here with some stairs, so that way we can make a tower, so that way we can traverse. By the way, I updated the version to 121.6 pre-release 2. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about the environmental fog still, but it's certainly a unique effect. I don't think it carries well over video though, judging by what I can see in OBS so far. But anyways, right here, you can see how I jutted out the wall by 1. And well, it looks kind of interesting. And then added a flower bed right here. We will decorate this later. Whether you're using this, well, normal grass or moss is up to you. We might add a window here as well. Who knows? But anyways, we now have this deck here. And then we can try decorating it with a little bit of oak. I think oak is actually a little bit better than I initially gave credit to in my past builds. So we can probably try something like this, maybe a little bit higher up, something like that, in order to just go down and act as a porch for this place. Remember to outline it with some spruce. And if we want to, we can try incorporating a little bit of walls into this. So let's think of a good wall. I think stone bricks is a pretty neutral option for just about any scenario. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about one right there, but it's certainly something. And then later on, we can try varying tactics. But anyways, make this edge block actually spruce, because spruce often works as a good edge block. So that way, you can see here, it's darker, and, well, it looks better. And then, if you want a fence, make sure the center part is a fence gate, not only for safety reasons, but because it looks cool. Now, we have a nice little porch. You can see how I have the walls and fences in conjunction. And then a nice little door, nice flooring, and, the darkness. Yeah, so the darkness is here, which means we should probably light this up because the last thing we want is mid-build, we're doing something else, we're collecting resources, we come back and we get blown up by a creeper. Of course, if you actually get blown up by a creeper, maybe we have more questions about your skill at the game, but anyways, we should probably light this up in the case, something happens. Start off by lining the top with spruce planks, like this. And, well, they're actually spruce stairs. And then, what we want to do is try doing a quick layering effect using trapdoors. This can get very, very pricey. Yeah. But anyways, we do it like this. And you can see how they're going across. And then we can alternate some slabs in. And this is a really nice roof texture. I strongly recommend this one. But yes, you should probably do a little bit of studying on other Tudor houses from reference images both in and out of Minecraft, because that's how you make a good one. I'm doing it myself, and you can see here I'm learning new tricks. And well, you should try it too. Just because you think you're learning things doesn't mean you aren't learning enough. I mean, yeah, I shouldn't be the one making inspirational quotes. But anyways, continue trying to learn. Porch now in place. You can see very simple stuff, no extra decorations yet, but I will add this real quick because it looks better, and then we can add the rest of the things later, like lighting. Speaking of which, if we go on the inside, well, we have the nice floor. I added a nice roof as well. You can see slabs and trapdoors alternating, but it's still kind of dark in here. We might have nice stuff, but we need a little bit more. Thus, we will be adding some lanterns, and they're only one iron ingot a piece, so I wouldn't be worrying too much. Add little notches across the ceiling, and then on them, place lanterns as needed. We can see right here, 2 lanterns is almost enough to light up the whole place. So I'll continue adding them, and then over here, every 3 blocks. You can see, pretty nice effect. Add another one, and what do you know? We now have a nice little room. And then we can fill this up with storage, maybe add some windows later, things like that. And then, right here, I have this little piece that juts out with a ladder that goes to the second floor. The floor up here is spruce logs, facing one direction, and then oak. I don't think the spruce logs fit, so maybe experiment with different ones. But either way, on the outside we can see, still a very basic house. I made a few more holes for windows, but those are really just placeholders. And this piece here, I'm going to make it go up. The idea is this will become a little thing. Maybe it could become a chimney, even though that's really not how it works. Still something like that. And it goes up at the end of the roof. And that will add to the charm of the build. Anyways, we need to continue working on things, and I think the next best step, it would be the roof. But if you make interesting shapes like I do, and I'm just going to shave these off real quick, then you might have a little bit of trouble when it comes to some of the contours of the building. So we can go across like this, all fine and dandy. What about this part? Yeah, so you're going to definitely have to do a bit of trial and error, and I'll do the same to make sure that you can do fancy shapes like this too. Right here, I added a very small mini roof to this extended portion, and I think I like it. But there is a bit of a problem. So I was building the rest of the roof. I'm learning some new roofing tactics in order to make this a really good build, because I'm gonna be honest, I've kind of stagnated building wise, so I need to learn some new things. And you can see right here, between the 2 sides where they merge, I added some fences going up and down. And then you can see right here, I go from slabs to stairs to tall blocks and stairs. So that way we have a more interesting build to look at. And then the actual roofing material is deep slate bricks, which I'm probably going to texture with a different block later. So something like this going across would look really good, but there's a problem. Once I start adding my little extra details with spruce, it's going to be a little hard to determine where the roof is, hence why I introduced dark oak into the palette. And a little bit of an unwritten rule on the channel, I try to make my builds as easy as you can in survival. Of course, as I learn more, I'm going to be using more blocks and it's going to become harder, but, I'm just going to include dark oak in this one. If you are having trouble getting dark oak, then we can look at the stair category and see what else we can use. Potentially you want to do deep slate bricks with the inside being deep slate tiles, or you could potentially even try going as far as including blackstone, which is incredibly easy to get once you go to the nether. But of course, dark oak, I don't think it's too hard to get in the grand scheme of things. By the time you're trying to build a really good looking house, I'd assume you'd have it. But anyways, my jargon aside, try making your roofs dark oak instead of spruce to make sure that you can use spruce on other parts of the build, like the porch roof. This whole section here is done, very nice roof, and later on I'm probably going to add a few deep slate tiles to add a nice darker texture into it. But that's not my worry right now. For our final piece about the roof proper, we have a shorter roof here. This is especially useful if your interior spaces do not line up. Right here you can see 7 and 7, these areas line up perfectly fine. But here, I'm going to artificially make it not do that. So shaving off that there, this is just going to go right through the roof. Let's ignore it. Well, this is a slab roof, and it's shorter, which means once it connects differently. And this is actually a good thing. This allows us to have 2 different levels of roof. And if we have 2 different levels, then what we can do is we can just have a bit more going on, which is exactly what we want. It's not going to be too much. It's just an interesting effect we should try out at least once. So let's do that and see where it goes. Of course, you can try all of the roof topping stuff, and maybe even try incorporating small little dormers, as in small windows, onto this, in order to see how much can we add onto this, even if they don't go anywhere. Right here, you can see it's the roof, and I've connected the 2 pieces, and it's completely done. And also, I added these little dormers, and iron bars up here. Notably, they're on every other one, just for the extra pizzazz. And then you can see right here, we have some dark oak stairs, a slab, a glass pane, and then some black concrete surrounding a few candles. These are called dormers when you add little windows on your roof, and I think they work quite well here. And then, if we set it to midnight, you can see even though the rest of the video is dark, this is a little beacon of light. Eventually, we're going to try and get it like over there. And you can see, even though the rest of the video is dark, that's pretty visible. So let's try and get that by the end of the build. Right now, it's looking pretty cozy though. So we're at a start. Now, if we set it back to day, a few things. For one, I think this part should be symmetrical onto the other side, because it just looks better. And then, it's time for the texturing. And what texturing entails, by the way, I replaced this tower with an actual chimney. I don't know how I'm going to handle it yet. But hey, that's a tomorrow me problem, because this is 11:20 p.m. at night. So, I don't have to deal with that right now. Let's incorporate some terracotta and then some granite into this. Maybe use polished granite for good measure. If you're feeling a little bit special, you can add some dripstone into this, although that might come with varying mileage. So, a word of caution about that. And I'm just going to destroy this quick wall here just to make sure I don't run into any weird mishaps later. And what we're going to do is just add random blobs and then little shapes into it, little pieces of polished granite as well. This adds a lot into your walls. So let's try it. And then let's not leave the top parts out either. Let's pull out some white blocks and let's ignore what blocks they are and worry just about the texture. Now we have different whites to incorporate into this. And even though there's some pretty out there blocks, nobody builds their house out of concrete powder. You can build out of concrete. Still, it adds much needed breaking up of the build. This is a good thing. Let's try incorporating it throughout. Alright, You can see here, I did a bit of the texturing. We have some nice moody atmosphere, and you can see this build is starting to come together. Added an extra lantern here, but there's something else we need. And here, I'm just gonna get rid of this rain. Although it looks cool, it is very distracting. But right here, you can see I have some slabs going above, and they make this little arch shape. We want to incorporate this in order to add depth into the build. And this side right here, or really just this portion, leave it as is. Leave this completely bare. But these other parts, let's try incorporating things. So maybe we can get out some leaves and who knows, maybe just a spruce leaf here and there. That's birch, not spruce. Oh well, it still looks good. Things like that. Let's try incorporating it. Maybe some extra fences and maybe a chair. And the chair is very simple. We can do trapdoors and fold them up like this. Things like that. We want to add a bit of depth into the build and then texture this chimney. Which, by the way, I figured out what I'm going to do with. Right here you can see just some basic netherrack burning. And then we're going to texture it. On the inside, hollow. At the top, campfires. On the second floor, you can see just some spruce and this little extruding piece. We can see just some ladders. Very simple stuff. And also, this wall to hide the netherrack is a barrier. I mean, not barrier, barrel wall. So, hooray, we have some stuff going on. Let's add more. With a bit of exterior detailing, we can see right here, it looks really cozy. And also, I did some roof texturing. So, let's change it back to day and see what's going on. And first off, notice how I'm placing birch leaves without anything under them. I'm not doing some crazy trapdoors or anything like I usually do. You can just place leaves on structures. We don't need to have a constant justification. And sometimes you just gotta let go of realism when building. I mean, not everything here is realistic. Like right here, you can see how when it gets closer to the top, I go from gray to light gray to terracotta, things like that. It makes it look like it's burnt up here. Although I don't think that's how it works, still, it looks really cool. And then, of course, we have these walls here and the fences. It's just kind of beautiful. I'm quite happy with my builder growth. But anyways, we also have this piece here where it goes up and down. And you can see how I removed the log here and placed a simple brick block. That is intentional to make sure that we don't have logs getting in the way and being a little bit, scenery breaking. Also, hidden door back here because, well, what if I want something behind? Then added some chests right here. Very simple. And then we can go to the front. We have a bell, a very simple table, a plant, dead bush, and birch leaves, and then some carpet. It's a very nice little building. And you can see over there, I've had my old birch forest tutorial pulling out my spyglass, and then F1. You can see it looks nice, but this one, well, I just think I'm doing a really good job. So, comment, is there anything I should know about building? Because evidently I spent 4 years on this channel and didn't learn very much. But now, what we want to do is figure out some other stuff. Like here, I have another porch, but this time, there's some dirt and coarse dirt down there. Along with that, this window, you can see pane, block, pane. Add some depth. This will be our horse stable. I will include a horse. But we should also have some wheat. So right here, we're going to have a very small farm. Hide the water under this layer or under the house or something like that. This is, for animals. And then up here, place down some nice flowers. Coming in on my horse, which only had 0.17 speed, bumped it up to 3, so it was actually cool. You can see I have a stable right here and the plants. They're currently growing in. Pretty basic, but I like it. There's also a torch flower growing, which I put there intentionally. Right here you can see, well, we have 3 fence gates because horses can't fit through exactly 1. But here's a cool trick. I actually didn't know about this. I'm definitely going to have to use this for a roof. So right here, notice how the fence gate in the middle is taller? This is because when a fence gate is touching a wall, it lowers itself by 3 pixels. Use this wisely. Because of course, well, you can have nicer fence gates if you do it right. Although this does make it a little bit inconsistent with some of the other walls in the build. So it's up to you whether you want to keep it. I think I might want to get rid of it though. As cool as it is, I don't think it necessarily fits. But who knows, maybe you disagree with me. In that case, well, this is why I don't make block by block tutorials. Go ahead and defy me. And then I'm going to add an extra plant here because, well, I just felt like it was a little bit empty. Maybe a window, question mark? Nobody can stop me. I'm adding a window. Well, anyways, with all this being done, well, we have our build getting pretty close to completion. It's not going to have enough room for everything, but we can certainly continue adding. But for now, let's move on to the interior. And a good way to figure out what you need is to literally just play in survival. But for now, because I'm in creative mode and I don't want to go into survival, here, let's just look at the functional blocks tab. And we can see crafting table, stone cutter, all these things. Think about them. And then we can try incorporating them. So real quick, let's see how many we can stick in here. Let's assume that this is magically enough storage. If you're out at a basement, using roughly the same design as this foundation, and maybe just replace the walls with a little bit darker or something, maybe normal stone bricks. Inside here, you can see very densely packed full of random things that helps us survive. And I quite like this build. I think it's a really good interior. And you can see I even use anvils as decoration as needed. Hidden water source here, chest for our brewing ingredients, furnaces incorporated into the floor for extra space, things like that. And of course the back door, but we'll show that later. And by we, I mean I, because Gearsaw Studios actually independently operates. I have advisors, but that's it. But anyways, you can see right here, I have a nice bed, some dark oak stuff, and then a wither skeleton skull, unlit candles. Right here I knocked out some of the windows, so that way I could, instead of leaves, I put sweetberry bushes. And we can harvest those as needed. And then we have some little plants here, they add to the effect, along with a little cot made from scaffolding. I'm not entirely sure what you'd use it for. This wall is a little bit barren, so potentially you could incorporate little things like that into there in order to just, spice it up. And then right here, a much more decorated room. You can see because we have a different ceiling, well, we can have weird floors. So we have the glazed terracotta carpet. Along with that, we have some stuff here. And because this part is hidden by a painting and table, we can hide a barrel right here, which means we can hide our goodies in there in case you're worried about, mischievous people. And then right here, nice bird cage. I'm not going to shove a bird in there right now. And then an untextured fireplace. You know what? I'm just going to handle that real quick. Let's just get some granite. And then we're going to place on a terracotta. Don't ask how all of this works with the fireplace stuff. I think it looks cool. Don't take that away from me. Okay. Now we have a textured fireplace. And then we also have a campfire here with some uncooked meats. If you just place them on and then take out the campfire by using a shovel or some water, hey, you can do that. And then for the ceiling, very basic stuff. Which, by the way, quick error here. We need to handle that real quick. But anyways, yes, I hide some lanterns on the ceilings and even under these carpets, so that way it's nice and well lit. Then going to the outside, you can see how I'm doing a bit more. Around these height changes, I incorporated a bit of a cobblestone wall. It's incomplete, don't worry. But we're going to add some mossy stuff to it in order to make it appear more interesting. And you can still do this to a lesser extent even if there's no height variance. Say you flattened out your area a bit too well. Then right here, a little bit of different kind of flooring using smooth stone. And then we have smokers. We have some ore piles. And then anvils, blast furnaces. And what do you know? We also incorporate gravel into the floor. But with this little path, which is cobblestone and andesite, we have something really nice going on. For these cobblestone walls, just use some stairs and slabs to make it a bit rocky. We want a rocky design here, and thus we'll do exactly that. And then finally, you can try incorporating a little bit of landscaping by having some flowers or even planting a tree or two. Now you can see this rock border, which I created by outlining what I wanted, then jumping while spinning in order to place the stairs, then fleshing it out. Well, I think I did a pretty good job on it. And you can see, well, this build is effectively finished. There's just one final detail here. Okay, I knew that was going to bug me forever. I mean, I already had to make a second take of this because I forgot some flowers at the entrance. So there, we have that. And then, of course, the flowers. Yes, this costed a whole outro. But hooray, our Tudor house is done. You could reasonably build this in the first few days of your playthrough. Of course, you need to go down in the deep slate layer, maybe mine like 2 or 3 stacks. Then you need to get dark oak wood, then spruce and oak. And then finally, you don't really have to do terribly much. You'd probably want to find a lush cave, but otherwise, the little details of course can be swapped out. I mean, this is not an exact tutorial, which means you can do just about anything. You don't have to go out and find bamboo immediately for one small cot. These are just suggestions. If you don't like them, well, laugh at me or something, maybe don't leave a dislike. I kind of don't like that, but draw a picture of me and call me stupid or something, I don't know. But yeah, it's just a nice little house. You can build this decently quickly. So yeah, it's the end of today's video. Of course, please like and subscribe, generic YouTuber stuff. Here's a bunch of graphics. And I'd like to reach this big number right here drawn in MS Paint by the end of summer. So either way, enjoy the rest of your day. Gearsaw out.